and welcome to Unchurch. This is Katie Weaver. I'm so happy to be here with you guys this morning. Of course, it is Sunday morning, but if you're watching this at any time, I want to welcome you here as well. This is our 20 minutes of spiritual upliftment. I've been doing Unchurch now for several months. Who knew that at some point, pretty much all churches were going to be online for a time? But this is not church. This is the opposite of church. It's Unchurch. Unchurch was born by a need from my friends and clients and me too to have some kind of very short and uplifting Sunday morning meeting of sorts. So that's how Unchurch came to be. I want Unchurch to always be a dialogue. And so if you are watching the live stream and you want to make a comment, I would love to hear what you have to say. This was never supposed to just be about me. A lot of people have said it's very unfortunate that COVID had to happen at the same time as allergy season due to all of the coughing, which I absolutely agree with. But it's probably fine, right? Okay. I hope we're still streaming. Everything is frozen on my end, but I'm going to keep moving as if we are, and hopefully that's the case. So I wanted to talk today. First, I want to share some good news because, we need good news right now, don't we? So we'll definitely look into some good news from the Good News Network, and I'm excited to do that. But I also want to point out that you can find good news on the Good News Network as well as lots of other good news sites. They're not the things that are being blasted all over social media quite so much, but you can still find them. And that's a really good way to give yourself a little boost, a little bit of upliftment, and things to share, right, that aren't horrifying. It's one of the things that I'm trying to do. I know, there's plenty of fear out here, right? It's okay. All right, so some good news that is fun to share. Okay. New York City opens special centers for kids of healthcare and other essential workers on the front lines of COVID-19. So basically centers for kids who may be exposed so that we're keeping them maybe a little separated from others, but also giving them all of the love and care that they need, desire, and absolutely deserve. I think that's really important. That's really good. Okay. Around the country, people are doing things to thank first responders. One of them is making signs and putting them around hospitals and medical centers. My own little town, driving up the hill to our hospital, there are signs in the grass every so often of people thanking our hospital staff here. One of my favorites was that our heroes wear scrubs. I thought that was really sweet. There's a lot of stuff like that going on that I think is really kind. We talked last week a little bit about the Adopt a Doctor or Adopt a Nurse program to buy food from local eateries that also really need your business to be sent over to the hospitals to help feed our first responders and, of course, our hospital staff, which I thought was a really kind and generous offer. And that's happening in quite a few cities now, which I think is pretty cool, pretty fun. Lots of fun things. People are putting teddy bears or other items in their windows so that as families take drives or walks, their kids can watch for them. It's something to look for and look forward to, which I thought was fun. A lot of things that are happening right now could be done in such an irresponsible way, or they could be done in a responsible way. So you still have to monitor yourself and your families, right? But there's lots of good things that you can do, which I think is really, really important to remember. Irish researchers have developed a hospital robot that uses UV light to kill viruses, bacteria, and germs in order to sanitize their hospital stations. Pretty cool, and that helps to keep everybody safe. Lots of good things happening. Lots of good things happening. Oh, hourly workers at, I think this is at Heb, grocery store. Oh, no, it's at Kroger. Sorry, at Kroger are getting hero bonuses for their service during COVID-19. How cool is that? We talk a lot about medical personnel, which we should, but there are so many heroes showing up right now. And the ones that are working in the grocery stores are a big part of that. I think we owe them a lot of you know, our honor. They're doing something that, well, frankly, I think a lot of us wouldn't want to do. So I don't know about you guys, but our Walmart has now started limiting how many people are allowed to come inside. And you can't just go bebopping into Walmart. If there's already a certain amount of people inside, you get to wait outside in your car until it's your turn, which I thought was great. Our Walmart has had a real issue with hordes of college students just kind of bored and hanging out in there. Whole families showing up with all of their little children, just a lot of kind of irresponsible behavior. So I had the opportunity yesterday. I actually stepped out of quarantine for a minute, kind of. I was extremely careful. Months ago, I had committed to officiate a wedding for some friends of ours. And this wedding was to be a big party, a big event with 120 guests. Of course, it has dwindled and dwindled and dwindled. And most of the guests were flying from the other side of the country who, started saying a while ago, I can't come. Then our governor put a lockdown on our state that basically made it so that her venue was inaccessible. And I will tell you that the couple that I married they both work in healthcare and they totally understand. They've been really good about it. They've been very careful about it. But they still wanted to get married. They waited for a year. So yesterday, I officiated a very tiny wedding in front of the falls in Idaho Falls, Idaho. There was maybe 15 guests that were very careful about staying back and social distancing. I told her I'm going to show up in a mask. I'll take it off right before the ceremony and then I'll put it right back on, which is what I did. We were extremely careful about germs and cross-contamination, and I even made everyone bring their own pen to sign the marriage license so that we weren't touching each other's stuff. So I do promise I was extremely careful. It was heartening, though, to see this. I was impressed with their ability to be resilient because, damn, their dream wedding was essentially dashed. Now they're going to have a big party later in the summer and they will get their reception and they'll get their family. But their wedding itself was something they'll never forget, but resilient, loving, beautiful. They were so sweet with each other. It was just a really, really loving event. It really lifted me up. So I wanted to share it with you guys. So congratulations to my dear friends. And as always, it's a pretty great experience to get to officiate these kinds of events. Pretty amazing. So I want to talk a little bit today about grief. And I hope this isn't a topic that's just done to death, but, ooh, that was a horrible pun that was not intended at all. However, here's the reality is that you're going to know plenty of people that are going through some grief here in the next while. That's just the reality of what we're facing, either from death or from job loss or from relationship shakeups or a myriad of other things, right? Maybe just grieving what they don't have right now. Thinking about my daughter and her softball team, and they're grieving losing their season that they trained so hard for. Lots of people have lost lots of things. I could talk for the rest of this broadcast about what people have lost, but probably not worth it. Let's talk about how to help, what to do, how to help yourself. Grief is a very interesting topic because people say lots of things or they don't, right? When my mom died, I realized that there are things you shouldn't say that everybody says. It's a toughie, right? Because would you rather be ignored or have people say the wrong thing? Maybe a little bit of both, but some things to remember when people are grieving. One is that you cannot apply reason to them at this time. Don't apply social norms, don't apply manners, don't apply anything to them that you normally would expect. When people are in grief, they are in a deep state of survival mode. And when people are in a deep state of survival mode, they're not always thinking in a way that they would otherwise. Be tough, have a thick skin. Don't allow yourself to be hurt. Just not about you. And even if people's behavior is way off the wall, just recognize they're going through hell right now. They are just doing the best they can. There's a few things that I think are useful to say. and some things that I think are not useful to say. Uh, but say something. The worst part of grief for people, especially after the initial loss, after, the service, if there is one, which right now there would not be, but, after, the dust has settled, is the silence from people that you thought were your friends who just kind of slip into the woodwork. I don't think these people are all just ass monkeys that don't care about their friends. I don't. What I think is that for the most part, they just don't have a clue what to say. And so perhaps they avoid people. I've seen it a lot. I've probably done it. We've all done it, right? Right now, as people are going through grief, there are some things that are useful. The first one that I think is the most useful thing that you can say to someone who's been through a loss is, I love you. I'm sorry, and I love you. That's all. You don't have to get too eloquent here. There's a lot of times not much you can say. It's also okay to say, I don't know what to say. There are no words for this, but I love you and I am here for you. And then prove it, you know? Check in with them every so often. One thing that I've found with people who have gone through a loss is that their friends don't necessarily want to bring that person up because they don't want to bring that pain to the surface. Well, here's the thing. That pain's already at the surface, and it's going to be for a good long time to come. It's okay to say. One of the things I loved the most about Jay was blah, blah, blah. Or do you remember that time that Jay, yada, yada, I've never laughed so hard, or whatever it is. It actually is so healing and helpful for people to tell you their stories about your loved one, to tell you the things that they remember, particularly things that maybe you didn't know. There's a lot of healing in that. Don't hesitate to bring up somebody's lost loved one. Don't think that that is a mistake. Don't act like that is a crime. That's actually really healing and helpful. It also helps that person to recognize that that person has not disappeared. They are still here in some capacity. We are still talking about them. That keeps them here. So don't be afraid to do that. It's okay. It really is. Sometimes just listening is the best thing you can do. Sometimes someone who's been through a loss, if they trust you enough, if they're feeling vulnerable, letting their guard down enough, they will go on for a long time. They might tell you some gory details that are a little tough to hear. They might tell you some things that you wish you never had to know. Just listen. Don't listen with the need to respond. Just listen to understand. Listen to let them get that off their chest. That's all you have to do. Right now, in life and times of COVID, as people are having deaths, it's very tricky because funerals are basically not allowed right now. Now, some people are finding ways to be able to have a graveside service. Actually, people who are passing of COVID, they are highly recommending that their remains are cremated. I mean, it's getting very a bit macabre, I think, but it's stuff that we do have to face and know about. Knowing that people are going through losses like this and are unable to have some kind of a service or a funeral is extremely painful. One thing that you can do is bring some memories to the surface. Perhaps you could help them to make a slideshow or a video. Perhaps you could help organize some kind of online meeting to have a bit of a service. Now, everyone's kind of holding on to this hope that maybe later in the summer they can still have a service. And in most cases, I'm sure that's true. However, there's a lot of healing in the service. There's a lot of healing and a lot of closure in being able to close that door. And it concerns me that people are going to feel like they have to wait for 3 months in order to have that. I feel like maybe we can organize some kind of online way for people to grieve together, to have some kind of a little service. Maybe you can help do that. Maybe you can just listen. Maybe you can be a part of the solution in some other way that, would be specific to this individual. Those are the things I want to say about supporting people that are grieving. What if it's you? What if you're grieving? Maybe it's not a death. Maybe you're just grieving the way your life was. Maybe you're grieving the loss of your job or just the current lack of being able to do your job. There's a lot of things that you may be grieving right now. One thing that I've recognized in some of my clients is that they don't know they're grieving. They know that something's way off with them. They're not really sure what it is, you know? And it's easy to attribute it to, well, the world's a bit crazy right now, so sure. What does grief look like? What does it feel like? Well, grief is exhausting. Physically, emotionally, spiritually exhausting. If you are having a hell of a time getting off the couch right now, if you aren't really feeling like making dinner or doing the dishes or interacting online or doing the things that you would normally do, consider where your grief level may be. Now, I'm also describing depression. Some of you know that. And so that's something to consider as well. But where is your grief level right now? Here's the thing with grief. Grief takes time. Grief takes some amount of awareness in recognizing that perhaps you are grieving. And grief takes some talking. So find someone to talk to. If it's a friend or a family member or somebody else, talking is healing. Talking out what your fears are. We've been called upon right now to be very brave and very tough. And for the most part, I think we are. And that's a good thing. But you know what? If you're not tough today, that's all right. If you are a crying, gob of goo, fine. That's okay. Those are also emotions that need to be felt and need to be processed through. There's no judgment there, right? But recognize what it is. Grief is going to require you to get more sleep. Grief might make your body ache like you cannot believe. And only people who have been through a close loss might recognize that. But grief is painful, very physically painful. So rest. Feed yourself good food. Spend time, if you can, online or if they live with you, people who make you feel comforted. Reach out for some comfort and for some peace if you need to do that. That's important too. But recognize grief. Now, look, you don't have to have just, had a death in your family or your world to be feeling grief. You could be feeling the grief of the world. You could be feeling the grief of other things. You can't really measure what grief is or isn't, right? Because it's completely different for one person than what it may be for you. So don't judge yourself. Don't feel like I don't get to feel this way because this isn't that big of a deal. That's not helpful, right? Allow yourself to feel what you're feeling. Rest. Eat good food. Try to drink enough water. Get some sunshine every day, even if you don't really feel like it. That's important. It's key. Look for some happy distractions. Movies, books, comedians, podcasts, whatever. They don't even have to be happy per se, but look for distractions. Sometimes distractions are a really, really powerful thing in just helping you to move out of that headspace for a while. Most importantly with grief, though, don't let anybody tell you how you have to do it. Grief is deeply personal. It is deeply individualized. And the way you do grief and the way someone else does grief will be completely different. And guess what? They are both still relevant. They are both still okay. Nothing irks me more than people telling someone how they should be grieving, right? You haven't cried yet. That's a problem. It's been 3 months. It's time for you to snap out of it. Maybe what you need to do is go on a date, whatever it is. No, nobody gets to tell you how to grieve. Nobody gets to tell you how to reformat your life. That's up to you. Maybe you'll do it quickly. Maybe that feels better to you. That's the thing that you want to do. I see this with animals, right? Some people, they have a loss of a beloved pet and they don't get another one for a really long time. And that's okay. Other people experience the loss of a beloved pet and they have a new puppy by Monday. And that's okay too. If that's what your heart needs, if that's what works for you, perfect, right? No judgment. Let people do grief the way they need to. Support them, love them, and support their choices. And do the same thing for you. It's going to be an interesting week here on planet Earth, especially here in the US, and we're going to need to remember some of this stuff. Breathe. Love yourself. Love the people around you. And don't forget to talk and reach out when you need to. Right now, suffering in silence is probably the worst thing you can do. Or maybe it isn't, right? Maybe that's the way you want to do it. Maybe it feels right for you. And if that's the case, that's okay too. But if you are feeling unloved, if you're feeling unsupported, reach out. Make sure that somebody is hearing from you. Make sure that you are having that opportunity to get something off your chest. We're all going to need some of those opportunities. All right, you guys, I've done what I do. We have talked down to the end of Unchurch. Thank you for being here. Thank you for joining me. I will be back here next Sunday, same place, same time. Also, you can find this uploaded at YouTube later. Of course, I Facebook lived it first. You'll find it at YouTube later in the day if you would rather watch it that way. It's Domestic Mystic on YouTube. You guys take care of yourselves. I love you. Love your families. Love those around you. Love is what we got right now, right? You can learn more about me over at katie-weaver.com. Have a blessed, blessed day.